The orbital junkyard of Thesser Prime stretched across the darkness of space like a graveyard of forgotten dreams. And Captain Elena Vasquez stared at it through the cracked viewport of her aging hauler with tired but determined eyes. She had been flying through the stars for 15 years now, ever since Earth had made first contact with the galactic community. And in all that time she had learned one painful truth about the universe. Nobody respected humans. The Galactic Commerce Authority had given humanity a label that still burned in their chest whenever she thought about it. They called humans a provisional species, which was a polite way of saying that Earth's children were too new, too primitive, and far too poor to matter in the grand scheme of things. Behind her, the rest of her crew waited in silence, each of them carrying the same weight of frustration and hope that kept them going through the cold emptiness between the stars. Tomas Reyes, her chief mechanic, was a broad-shouldered man with grease, permanently stained into his fingers, and a mind that could fix anything from a broken toaster to a damaged warp drive. He had joined Elena's crew 5 years ago, after losing his family's repair shop on Mars to a Velthary corporation that had bought out the entire district. Jin-Soo Park sat at the pilot's controls, her quick eyes scanning the debris field ahead. She was the fastest pilot Elena had ever seen, a woman who could navigate an asteroid field blindfolded and still come out without a scratch on the hull. And Dr. Amara Okonkwo stood near the back of the bridge, her tablet clutched to her chest, her dark eyes filled with the endless curiosity of a scientist who had given up a comfortable research position on Earth to explore the unknown. These were her people, her family, and together they survived on the scraps that the elder races of the galaxy threw away. "Captain," Jin-Soo called out, her voice tight with concern, "we have exactly 47 credits left in our account, and the docking fee for this junkyard is 45. Elena nodded slowly, feeling the familiar knot of worry twist in her stomach. They needed fuel, they needed food, and they needed a lucky break before their ship fell apart around them. The hauler they flew was called the Wandering Hope, and she was old, battered, and held together by Tomas's skill and a lot of desperate prayers. Her hull was patched in 17 different places. Her life support system wheezed like an old man with a bad cough, and her navigation computer crashed at least once a week. But she was theirs, and in a galaxy that treated humans like unwanted guests at a grand party, having something of your own meant everything. The junkyard's main station loomed ahead, a massive structure built from the welded remains of 100 dead ships. And as the Wandering Hope docked with a shudder and a groan, Elena steeled herself for what was to come. She had dealt with Velthary merchants before, and she knew what to expect: arrogance, condescension, and the constant reminder that humans were barely worth their time. The Velthary were one of the elder races, beings with crystalline skin that shimmered in every color of the rainbow. And they had been traveling the stars for over 10,000 years before humans had even invented the wheel. They looked at humanity the way a grown adult might look at a toddler trying to join a conversation about politics. Elena led her crew through the station's grimy corridors, past piles of salvage and groups of alien workers who barely glanced at the humans walking by, until they reached the main trading floor where a Velthary merchant waited behind a counter made of polished metal. His name was Crystalex, and his face twisted into what might have been amusement as he watched the humans approach. His crystalline features caught the light and scattered it into tiny rainbows that danced across the walls. "Ah," he said, his voice carrying the musical quality that all Velthary possessed. "More humans come to pick through the garbage. How delightfully appropriate." Elena kept her expression calm even as anger flickered in her chest. She had learned long ago that showing emotion to beings like Crystalex only gave them more ammunition. "We are looking for salvage," she said, her voice steady and professional. "Anything with working parts that we can repair and resell." Crystalex laughed, and the sound was like wind chimes in a storm. beautiful and mocking at the same time. "Working parts," he repeated, shaking his crystalline head. "You humans always want working parts, as if you could actually do something useful with them. Tell me, little captain, do you even understand the technology you are trying to salvage?" Tomas stepped forward, his jaw tight, but Elena held up a hand to stop him. "Getting into a fight here would only make things worse." "We understand enough," she replied simply. The Valkyrie merchant studied her for a long moment, his multifaceted eyes glittering with something that might have been curiosity or contempt. It was hard to tell with his kind. Then he gestured lazily toward a viewing screen on the wall, and an image appeared. A battered vessel half buried in a mountain of debris, its hull scarred and pitted, its engines dark and cold. "There," Crystalex said, his tone dripping with false generosity. "Take that one. Consider it charity for your pitiful species." Elena studied the image carefully, her eyes tracing the lines of the ancient ship. It was old, older than anything she had seen before, with a design that did not match any known species in her memory. "What is wrong with it?" she asked, because there was always something wrong when the price was free. Crystalex waved a dismissive hand, his crystalline fingers catching the light. "Everything," he replied cheerfully. "The fuel is contaminated with some unknown substance. The drive core is cracked beyond repair. The navigation systems are completely fried. And the previous owner died trying to fly it. We have had it sitting in our yard for 300 years because nobody wants to waste time on such worthless junk." Jinsu and Tomas exchanged glances, and Elena could see the same thought forming in their minds that was forming in hers. Worthless to the Valkyrie meant something very different to humans. "We will take it," Elena said without hesitation. Crystalex's laughter followed them as they left the trading floor, echoing through the station's corridors like a cruel joke. He thought he had given them garbage, a final insult to add to all the others humanity had endured. But Elena Vasquez had built her entire life on finding value in what others discarded, and as she looked at her crew, she saw the same fierce determination reflected in their eyes. They spent the next 6 hours attaching tow cables to the ancient vessel and dragging it free from the debris pile, working in their spacesuits under the cold light of distant stars. It was hard, exhausting work, but humans were no strangers to hard work. When the ship was finally secured to the Wandering Hope's towing rig, Elena stood in the airlock and stared at their prize through the small window. The vessel was even more damaged up close, its hull covered in strange markings that seemed to shimmer faintly in the starlight, but there was something about it that made her heart beat faster. "Let us take her home," she said quietly, and Jinsu fired up the engines. Their hidden asteroid base was 3 days away, tucked into a forgotten corner of a system that nobody else wanted, and as they traveled through the darkness, Tomas began his preliminary scans of their new acquisition. "Captain," he called out on the second day, his voice strange and tight, "you need to come to the cargo bay." Elena found him standing in front of the ancient ship's open fuel tank, his face pale in the dim light, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. "What is it?" she asked, moving closer. Tomas pointed into the tank, and Elena looked inside. There, floating in the contaminated fuel, were thousands of crystalline seeds, each one pulsing with a faint but unmistakable living light. Elena stared at them in wonder, her breath catching in her throat, as the worthless gift from a mocking Valkyrie merchant revealed its impossible secret. Dr. Amara Akonko rushed into the cargo bay the moment she heard Tomas's call over the ship's communication system, her scientific equipment clutched in her arms like precious treasure, and when she saw what floated inside the fuel tank, she dropped everything she was carrying. The crystalline seeds drifted slowly in the thick liquid, each one no larger than a human thumb, and they pulsed with an inner light that seemed to breathe in rhythm with some ancient heartbeat that had been keeping time since before humanity had existed. "This is impossible," Amara whispered, her voice barely more than a breath, as she knelt beside the open tank and stared at the glowing seeds with wide, disbelieving eyes. Jinsu arrived moments later, and she too stopped in her tracks at the sight before her. "What are those things?" the pilot asked, her practical mind already racing through possibilities and dangers. Amara did not answer immediately. Instead, she pulled out her scanner and began taking readings, her hands shaking so badly that she had to try 3 times before she could get a stable result. When the data appeared on her screen, she let out a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "Ithkari bloom seeds," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "These are Ithkari bloom seeds." Elena looked at her crew's xenobiologist with confusion. She had never heard that name before. "Tell us what that means," the captain said, placing a steady hand on Amara's shoulder. Amara took a deep breath, trying to calm herself enough to explain what they had found. "The Ithkari were an ancient species," she began, her words coming faster as her excitement grew. "They existed over 3,000 years ago, long before most of the current galactic civilizations had even achieved space travel. They were gardeners of the cosmos, beings who grew their technology instead of building it." She gestured at the glowing seeds with reverent hands. These seeds were the heart of their civilization. A single Ithkari bloom seed contains enough living energy to power a battleship for a century. They could heal damaged ecosystems, purify poisoned worlds, even terraform dead planets into gardens of life. Tomas let out a low whistle, his mechanic's mind immediately grasping the implications. "And we have thousands of them," he said slowly. "When the Ithkari vanished," Amara continued, "their seeds were believed to have vanished with them. Every species in the galaxy searched for centuries, hoping to find even one surviving seed, but they never did. Eventually, everyone gave up and accepted that the bloom seeds were gone forever." Jinsu crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "But they were not gone," she said. "They were just hidden in the fuel tank of a ship that nobody thought was worth anything." Elena stared at the seeds, watching their gentle light pulse in the darkness of the cargo bay, and she felt the weight of this discovery pressing down on her shoulders. This was not just valuable salvage. This was the kind of treasure that could change the fate of entire civilizations. And they, a crew of humans that the galaxy considered worthless, had found it by accident. "If anyone finds out about this," Elena said quietly, her mind racing through the dangers ahead, "they will come for us." Amara nodded, her earlier excitement fading into worry. The Valkyrie would claim them as their property since the ship was in their junkyard, she said, and the Galactic Commerce Authority would probably side with them because humans have no standing in galactic law. Or they might just decide that provisional species should not have access to such powerful technology, Jinsu added grimly. And they would take the seeds by force. Tomas slammed his fist against the hull in frustration. "So we found the greatest treasure in the galaxy," he growled. "And we cannot even use it because the universe thinks we are too primitive to be trusted." Elena looked at each member of her crew in turn, seeing the same mixture of hope and fear in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. They had spent years being told they were worthless, that humans were newcomers who did not deserve a seat at the galactic table, that their species should be grateful for whatever scraps the elder races chose to throw their way. But here, floating in this tank of contaminated fuel, was proof that the universe did not always reward those who thought they were superior. Sometimes it gave its greatest gifts to those who were willing to look where others refused to see. "We keep this secret," Elena said finally, her voice hard with determination. "We tell no one outside this crew what we have found." The others nodded in agreement. "And we learn," she continued. "We study these seeds, we figure out how they work, and we find a way to use their power ourselves." Amara raised a concern that had been forming in her scientific mind. The elder races searched for these seeds for centuries, she said, and even when they had them, the Ethkari technology never worked for anyone but the Ethkari themselves. There must be something special about how the seeds function, something that others could not figure out. Elena smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile. Then we figure out what they missed, she said, because that is what humans do. We solve problems that everyone else has given up on. They sealed the fuel tank and moved the ancient ship deeper into their asteroid base, hiding it in a chamber that they had carved out of the rock years ago for storing their most valuable salvage. Over the following weeks, Amara devoted every waking moment to studying the seeds, running test after test, analyzing their composition and their energy signatures and their strange living patterns. What she discovered amazed her. The seeds respond to emotion, she announced one evening, her voice filled with wonder. Not logic, not commands, not mathematical formulas. They respond to feelings. She showed the others her research, pointing to readings that spiked whenever she approached the seeds with genuine curiosity and joy. The elder races are cold, she explained. The Vulthari, the Korvax, the Thessarian collective. They are all species that value logic and reason above all else. They look at the universe as something to be calculated and controlled. But the Ethkari were different, Jinsu said, understanding dawning in her eyes. Exactly, Amara confirmed. The Ethkari were emotional beings, creatures of passion and connection. Their technology responded to the feelings of its users, which is why the logical elder races could never make it work. Tomas laughed out loud, the sound echoing through their small base. Humans are the most emotional species in the galaxy, he said. Every alien we have ever met has told us that like it was an insult. It was never an insult, Elena said softly, staring at the sealed chamber where the seeds waited. It was our greatest strength, and we never knew it. That night, Elena made a decision that would change everything. She entered the chamber alone, approaching the tank where the seeds floated in their gentle, eternal dance, and she opened her heart to them in a way she had never opened herself to anything before. She thought about her crew, about the love she felt for each of them. She thought about Earth, about the blue marble of her birth that she had not seen in over a decade. She thought about humanity, about all the struggles and hopes and dreams of her species, and the seeds responded. One of them drifted toward her, rising from the liquid like a soap bubble floating on a breeze, and it touched her outstretched hand with a warmth that spread through her entire body. In that moment, Elena Vasquez understood something that the entire galaxy had forgotten. Some treasures could not be taken by force or bought with credits. Some treasures could only be received by those who opened their hearts to receive them. The seed pulsed once, twice, 3 times, and then its light flowed into her, merging with her nervous system in a rush of sensation that was part pain and part ecstasy. When it was over, Elena stood in the darkness, forever changed. She could feel energy now, not just see it or measure it, but actually feel it flowing through the universe like rivers of light. She could sense the distant stars and the cold, empty spaces between them. She could feel her crew sleeping in their quarters, their life forces warm and bright. The seeds had accepted her, and through her, they had accepted humanity. Now the real work could begin. 6 months passed in their hidden asteroid base. 6 months of secret work and careful experiments and discoveries that would have made the elder races tremble with envy if they had known. Elena's bond with the Ethkari seed had changed her in ways she was still learning to understand. She could feel the flow of energy across vast distances, sensing the pulse of stars and the cold silence of empty space with a clarity that no sensor array could match. But she was not the only one who had been transformed by their impossible discovery. Dr. Amara Akonko had continued her research with a passion that burned brighter every day, and she had learned that the seeds could teach as well as give. When she approached them with genuine questions, with honest curiosity and open wonder, they answered in ways that bypassed language entirely. Knowledge flowed into her mind like water filling an empty vessel, ancient wisdom about biology and ecology, and the delicate connections that linked all living things across the cosmos. "They want to share," Amara explained to the others one evening, her eyes bright with the joy of discovery. The Ithkari created these seeds to be gifts, to spread life and energy throughout the universe. Hiding them, hoarding them, was never their purpose. Tomas had taken a different path with the seeds, one that suited his practical nature. He had asked them, in his simple and direct way, if they could help him build better machines, and they had responded by showing him how to grow technology instead of constructing it. Now, 6 months later, the mechanic could create ship components from seed matter, watching in wonder as living metal took shape under his guiding hands. The parts he grew were stronger than anything he could have built, more efficient, and they repaired themselves when damaged. "It is like having a ship that wants to fly," he said, running his calloused fingers over a hull panel that pulsed faintly with inner light. "She tells me when something is wrong and helps me fix it." Jinsu had been the last to accept the seed's gift, her cautious nature making her hesitant to change herself in such a fundamental way. But when she finally opened her heart to the glowing crystal, what she received was beyond anything she could have imagined. The ability to feel pathways through space that no chart had ever recorded. Hidden routes between the stars that the Ithkari had traveled thousands of years ago. "There are roads out there," she told her crewmates with wonder in her voice. "Roads made of energy and gravity, and I can see them now. I can feel where they go." Together, the 4 humans began to rebuild the worthless ship that Crystalex had given them, transforming it from the inside out while keeping its battered exterior exactly as it had always been. They worked in secret, never leaving their asteroid base for longer than necessary, never drawing attention to themselves, never giving the galaxy any reason to wonder what the worthless humans were doing in their forgotten corner of space. The vessel changed slowly but completely under their loving care. Tomas grew new engines that ran on seed energy, silent and powerful and cleaner than anything the elder races had ever developed. Amara cultivated medical systems that could heal wounds in seconds and cure diseases that galactic medicine had declared incurable. Jinsu integrated a navigation seed into the pilot's console, and suddenly the ship could travel routes that bent the normal rules of space and time. Elena connected her own enhanced awareness to the vessel's newly grown sensor array, giving the ship eyes that could see threats before they even appeared. On the outside, it still looked like junk, a scarred and battered hulk that nobody would look at twice. On the inside, it had become something entirely new, a fusion of human creativity and Ithkari, life technology that the universe had never seen before. They named her the Second Chance because that was exactly what she represented. "We cannot hide forever," Elena said one night, as the crew sat together in their newly transformed ship. "Eventually, we need to rejoin the galaxy." Jinsu nodded her agreement. "We are running low on supplies that we cannot grow ourselves," she said, "and we need credits to buy them." Tomas cracked his knuckles, a gesture he made when he was thinking hard. "We could take on salvage work again," he suggested. "Use our new abilities to find things that others have missed." That was how it began. The Second Chance emerged from hiding and returned to the salvage trade. But now, everything was different. Jinsu's ability to feel hidden pathways let them reach abandoned wrecks that no other salvagers could find. Elena's energy sense showed them exactly which ships contained valuable cargo and which were truly empty. They grew wealthy quickly, turning profits that would have taken their old selves decades to accumulate. And they began to attract attention. Rumors spread through the spacer bars and trading posts of a human ship that moved like nothing else, appearing in places it should never have been able to reach, escaping ambushes as if it could see the future. Some said the humans had found a new type of engine. Others whispered that they had made a deal with strange and powerful beings. A few suggested that the humans were simply very, very lucky. None of them guessed the truth. The elder races began to notice as well, and their reaction was a mixture of confusion and irritation. How could a provisional species, a group of primitives barely worth acknowledging, suddenly compete with salvagers who had been working these routes for centuries? Crystal X himself encountered the second chance one day at a distant trading station, and his crystalline face twisted with disbelief when he recognized the battered hull of the ship he had given away as worthless garbage. "You," he said to Elena, his musical voice sharp with confusion. "You are still flying that piece of junk?" Elena smiled at him, and there was something in that smile that made the ancient Velthary merchant feel strangely uncomfortable. "She is a good ship," the human captain replied. "We just needed to give her a little love." Crystal X watched them go, and for the first time in his long life, he wondered if he had made a mistake. But by then, it was far too late. The second chance continued to grow more powerful as the months passed, and her crew continued to bond more deeply with the gifts the Ithkari had left behind. They were no longer just humans pretending to matter in a galaxy that dismissed them. They were becoming something new, something that the universe had not seen since the Ithkari themselves had vanished into the mists of history. Elena felt the change most strongly of all. Her awareness expanded with each passing week, reaching further and further into the cosmos until she could sense ships and stations across entire star systems. One night, as she sat alone in the captain's chair of her transformed vessel, she felt something that made her blood run cold. A Velthary warfleet was gathering at the edge of the Thesser system. 12 massive destroyers bristling with weapons. And they were asking questions about a human salvage ship that had become too successful too quickly. Someone had finally decided to find out what made the second chance so special. Elena called her crew together, and she saw no fear in their eyes when she told them what was coming. They had spent their whole lives being told they were worthless, and they were tired of believing it. Whatever the galaxy threw at them, they would face it together. The 12 Velthary destroyers dropped out of warp space like predators emerging from the shadows, their crystalline hulls gleaming with deadly beauty in the light of a dying star. Each ship was 500 meters long, armed with weapons that could crack a moon in half, crewed by soldiers who had been trained for war since before humanity had invented electricity. Against them stood the second chance, a battered salvage vessel that looked like it might fall apart if you sneezed too hard nearby. Admiral Crystaller, the highest-ranking Velthary military commander in this sector of space, stared at the human ship on his view screen with a mixture of contempt and curiosity. He was Crystal X's cousin, a connection that had brought the merchant's concerns directly to the attention of the Velthary Fleet Command. The family had lost face when that worthless junk had somehow become valuable, and they wanted answers. "Human vessel," Crystaller's voice boomed across the communication channel, his words carrying the absolute confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "You are ordered to power down your engines and prepare for boarding." On the bridge of the second chance, Elena sat calmly in her captain's chair, feeling the presence of the Velthary ships like cold spots in the warm fabric of space. Her enhanced senses showed her every weapon powering up, every shield coming online, every crew member moving to battle stations. "They're not here to talk," Jinsu said from the pilot's seat, her hands resting lightly on controls that hummed with living energy. "No," Elena agreed. "They are here to take." Tomas was at the engineering console, monitoring systems that no normal ship possessed. Amara stood ready at the medical station, prepared to heal whatever wounds the coming battle might bring. The Admiral's voice came again, hotter this time. We have received reports that you are using technology beyond your species' development level, he declared. As a provisional species, you are not authorized to possess such capabilities. Surrender your ship and its contents immediately, or you will be destroyed. Elena opened a channel to respond, and when she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. We found this ship in your junkyard, she said. Your people declared it worthless and gave it to us. Everything on this ship is ours by right. Chrystaller's laughter echoed through the bridge, a sound like breaking glass. Rights? He mocked. Humans do not have rights. You have permissions, granted by your betters, and those permissions can be revoked at any time. He leaned forward in his command chair, his crystalline eyes flashing with cold anger. Surrender now, and you will be permitted to survive as laborers in our mining colonies. Resist, and we will blast you into atoms and tell the galaxy that a human ship foolishly attacked a Velthari fleet. Elena looked at her crew, seeing the same thought in each of their eyes. They had spent their entire lives being told they were not good enough, that they should be grateful for whatever scraps the elder races chose to throw their way. They were done with that. No, Elena said simply. The Admiral blinked, confusion crossing his alien features. No provisional species had ever refused a direct order from a Velthari war fleet. No? He repeated, as if he had not heard correctly. Elena stood from her captain's chair, and though the Admiral could not see it, she was surrounded by a faint glow of energy that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. We will not surrender, she declared. We will not be enslaved, and we will not let you take what we have earned through our own hard work and determination. For a long moment, there was silence on the communication channel. Then Crystaller laughed again, but this time there was no humor in the sound. So be it, he said. Destroy them. 12 destroyers opened fire simultaneously, filling the space around the second chance, with a storm of plasma bolts and missile trails that should have reduced the little ship to scattered atoms in seconds. But the second chance moved. Jinsu's hands flew across her living controls, and the ship danced through the barrage like a leaf on a storm wind, slipping between weapons fire that seemed to pass through empty space moments after the vessel had already gone. The Velthari gunners stared at their targeting screens in disbelief. They had lock-ons, confirmed hits, but the human ship was simply not where their weapons expected it to be. Elena felt the attacks coming before they were even fired, her enhanced awareness reading the energy patterns of the enemy weapons and sending warnings to Jinsu moments before each shot. The second chance wove through the formation of destroyers, coming so close to one massive hull that the Velthari crew could see her battered exterior through their viewports. Return fire, Elena commanded. Tomas activated weapons that he had grown from seed matter, systems that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, and beams of pure life energy lanced out from the second chance's hidden gun ports. But these were not weapons of destruction. The Ithkari had never believed in killing. The beams struck the first destroyer's power systems and transformed them, converting the cold artificial energy into wild living force that the Velthari technology could not contain. Systems overloaded, engines failed, and the massive warship went dark, drifting helplessly in space. Another destroyer tried to ram them, but Jinsu saw the hidden pathway that curved around the attack and followed it with perfect grace. The enemy ship shot through empty space where the second chance had been a heartbeat earlier. One by one, the Velthari destroyers fell silent, their systems overwhelmed by energy they could not understand. Elena felt each ship go dark like candles being blown out in a strong wind. Within an hour it was over. 12 of the most powerful warships in the sector drifted powerless in space, their crews unharmed but completely helpless, while a single human salvage vessel hung among them like a shepherd watching over confused sheep. Admiral Crystaller sat in his darkened bridge, surrounded by the soft glow of emergency lighting, And for the first time in his 300-year military career, he knew the taste of total defeat. Elena opened a channel, and now her voice reached every ship in the Valkyrie fleet. "We do not want war," she said, and there was no anger in her words, only firm determination. "We do not want to dominate or destroy. We only want what every species wants, the right to determine our own future." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We found something you threw away," she continued, "and we made it ours. That is not theft, and it is not a crime. It is simply what humans do. We find value where others see none." The Admiral listened, and though his pride burned with shame, some small part of him recognized the truth in her words. "This is not over," he warned, his voice bitter. "The Galactic Commerce Authority will hear of this. Every elder race will demand that you be brought to justice." Elena smiled, though he could not see it. "Then let them come," she replied, "and let them see what humans have become." She cut the channel, and the second chance turned toward the stars. Behind them, the greatest military force the Valkyrie had sent to this sector in centuries floated powerless in the darkness. Defeated by a ship everyone had called worthless and a crew everyone had dismissed as primitive, the galaxy was about to learn that it had underestimated humanity for the last time. The news of the Valkyrie fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every spacer bar and trading post was buzzing with stories of the human ship that had humiliated the mightiest military force in the sector. Some said the humans had discovered ancient technology. Others claimed they had made deals with mysterious beings from beyond known space. The truth, of course, was even more incredible than any of the rumors. The Galactic Commerce Authority called an emergency session at their Grand Council Hall on the station world of Nexus Prime, summoning representatives from every major species to discuss what they called the human problem. Elena received the summons 3 days after the battle, delivered by a neutral courier drone that carried the official seal of the authority. She was ordered to appear before the council and explain herself, or face the combined wrath of every elder race in the galaxy. A crew gathered on the bridge of the second chance to discuss their options. "We could run," Jinsu suggested, her enhanced mind already mapping escape routes through hidden pathways that no other ship could follow. "Find a corner of the universe where they cannot reach us." "We could fight," Tomas added, cracking his knuckles with grim determination. "Show them that what happened to the Valkyrie fleet was not a lucky accident." But Elena shook her head at both suggestions. "Running would make us fugitives forever," she said, "and fighting would make us conquerors. Neither of those is what humanity should be." She looked at Amara, who had been quiet throughout the discussion. "What do you think?" Elena asked. The xenobiologist smiled, and there was wisdom in her eyes that went beyond anything she had possessed before bonding with the Dhkari seeds. "The seeds taught me something important," Amara said. "They showed me that the Dhkari did not hoard their gifts or use them to dominate others. They shared their power freely, spreading life and energy throughout the cosmos." She gestured at the sealed container where the remaining seeds waited, still glowing with their eternal light. "That is why their technology responded to emotion instead of logic," she continued. "It was meant to be given, not taken, shared, not controlled." Elena understood immediately what Amara was suggesting, and she felt a warm certainty spread through her chest. "We go to the council," she decided, "and we show them what humanity truly is." The second chance arrived at Nexus Prime 1 week later, slipping into dock at the massive station that served as the political heart of galactic civilization. Representatives from 100 species filled the Grand Council Hall. The crystalline Valkyrie, the machine-bodied Korvax, the hive-minded Thessarians, and dozens of others whose names humans were barely allowed to speak. They all stared at Elena as she entered the chamber. This small human woman who had dared to challenge the established order. The council speaker, a massive Korvax whose metal body gleamed with embedded jewels that signified his rank, raised a mechanical hand for silence. Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel, the second chance, he announced, his voice resonating from speakers throughout the hall. You stand accused of possessing unauthorized technology, assaulting a Velthari military force, and threatening the peace of the galactic community. He paused, his optical sensors focusing on her small form with cold calculation. How do you plead? Elena walked to the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of 1,000 hostile stares pressing down on her, but she did not flinch or look away. I have not come to plead, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. I have come to make a gift. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was not what they had expected. Elena reached into the bag she carried and withdrew a single Ifkari bloom seed, its gentle light pulsing in the dim chamber like a tiny heartbeat. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Gasps of recognition echoed from species that remembered the legends, and even those who did not recognize the seed could feel its living energy calling to them. Impossible, the Velthari representative whispered, his crystalline form trembling. The Hethkari bloom seeds were believed extinct, Elena said, holding the seed up for all to see. But they were not extinct. They were only hidden, waiting for someone who could understand them. She walked along the rows of shocked representatives, letting them see the seed up close. The elder races searched for these seeds for centuries, she continued. You wanted to own them, to control them, to add their power to your empires. But the seeds do not respond to ownership or control. She stopped in front of the council speaker, looking up at his towering metal form without fear. They respond to emotion, she said, to love, to hope, to the desire to share rather than to hoard. The Ifkari knew that true power cannot be taken. It can only be given. Elena raised the seed higher. Humanity did not steal these seeds. She declared, we were given a worthless ship that everyone else had discarded, and we found treasure inside because we bothered to look. She turned to face the entire council. We are not here to threaten you or to demand anything, she said. We are here to share what we have found, just as Ifkari would have wanted. One by one, Elena presented seeds to the representatives of every species in the chamber. Some accepted with trembling hands, some refused out of pride, but all watched in stunned silence as the provisional species they had dismissed for so long offered them the greatest gift the galaxy had ever known. The seeds will only work for those who approach them with open hearts, Elena explained. They cannot be forced or commanded. You must learn to feel, to connect, to care. Only then will they share their gifts with you. The council speaker stared at the seed in his mechanical hand, and something strange happened. In his optical sensors, they flickered with colors they had never displayed before. Why would you do this? He asked, his voice losing some of its cold authority. Why would you share such power with species that have treated you so poorly? Elena smiled, and there was no bitterness in her expression, only hope. Because that is what humans do, she replied. We look at the universe and see potential instead of limitations. We find value in what others discard. And we believe that tomorrow can be better than today if we are willing to work for it. She looked around the chamber one last time. We do not want to be your masters, she said. We want to be your partners. And maybe, if you give us a chance, we can show you things about the universe that you have forgotten. The vote that followed was chaotic and contentious, but when it was over, humanity was no longer a provisional species. The Galactic Commerce Authority granted Earth full membership in the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Elena and her crew became the first human ambassadors to the stars, traveling from world to world in the second chance, spreading the gifts of the Ithkari and teaching other species the long-forgotten art of emotional connection. Not everyone accepted the new order. Some elder races clung to their old prejudices, refusing to believe that primitives could teach them anything. But slowly, one heart at a time, the galaxy began to change. And Elena always remembered the lesson that had started it all. Somewhere out there, floating in the darkness, were treasures that the powerful and comfortable had thrown away. Humanity would keep looking through the wreckage, because you never knew what miracles the universe had waiting for those brave enough to believe they were worth finding.